Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today we're doing another recent reads, and let me tell you, this was a rough one. So I have 11 books to talk about. A majority of them I did give 3 stars, but I do have a DNF, a 1 star, a 2 star, 1 4-star, 1 5-star. So we are all across the board. But like I said, a majority of them are 3 stars, and my 3-star reads, they aren't necessarily ranked. So I'm just gonna talk about them however I pick them up. But we're gonna go ahead and get started with my 1 DNF. So the book that I DNF'd was actually an ARC that I received from NetGalley, and that is The 10 Worst People in New York by Matthew Plass. So this one, we're following this detective, and she is looking into the supposed suicides of these 2 men. But the thing about these 2 men is that they were put on the 10 worst people in New York list that was created from this talk show host. I guess his fans put this list together. Those 2 men were on it and they died. And so this detective is trying to figure out whether or not these 2 people are actually somehow connected to each other. And this detective is just trying to figure out if these 2 people have actually died by suicide or if they are somehow connected, and if other people from this list are gonna start dying as well. I gave this one a good shot. I DNF'd at 49%. I was just honestly bored. I was not really interested in the detective that we were following. We're also getting this other POV from this guy that's a documentarian who has been looking for his sister. And then when he finally finds his sister, she is avoiding him at all costs, and we don't know why. I'm sure that all of that is tied in somehow with each other, with both of the POVs, but I just did not care enough to stick around and find out. Apparently, this has not been getting the best reviews. I did not know that before I requested it from NetGalley, but by all means, if it sounds interesting to you or if this is one that you were looking forward to, check it out. It might work for you, but as you can see, it did not work for me. Next, I do have a 1-star read. This is my only 1-star read. And if you have been here a while, I don't typically rate books 1 star. The only time I do that is if I'm specifically trying to finish it because I want to actually do an in-depth review for it, or if I feel like a book is probably going to get a 1 star for me, I just rather DNF it and keep it pushing. However, with this one, I wanted to go ahead and stick it out because I have read a couple of other books by this author that I really enjoyed, but this one was a huge no for me. So we were talking about Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi. This is the same author that wrote Pet, which is a young adult book, and then the other book that I read from them is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, which I didn't actually love that book, but I enjoyed it enough. So I wanted to pick this one up, and before picking it up, I would highly suggest that you guys check out trigger warnings if you are wanting to read this. So in this one, we start off by following this couple, Kaylu and Aima, I think is how we say her name. And they have just broken up. So to get over their breakup, they each go to a wild party. So the girl, she ends up going out with her friends, and then the guy, he ends up going out with his best friend, and they end up at a sex party. And the story literally just takes off from there. We're introduced to quite a few characters that are intertwined with each other. We get a lot of the story from the guy's best friend, Ahmed, who was the host of these sex parties. And honestly, I just do not know what the purpose of this book was. Because in the beginning, there are a lot of uncomfortable sex scenes to get through, and I don't really know what the purpose of that was. And then in the middle, I was kind of okay with it, and that's kind of what made me stick with it, because I thought the story was going somewhere, and then we ended with some uncomfortable sex scenes, and then none of the storylines were wrapped up. It just left me with so many questions, and I just honestly do not know what I was supposed to take away from this. A lot of people have really enjoyed it. I'm not really sure what they got out of it that I didn't, but overall, it was just a really, really uncomfortable read for me, and it's probably partially my fault because I didn't do enough research into what this was, because if I did, I probably would have never picked it up. If this is a book that you guys are interested in, please, please, please check out those trigger warnings, because I think you really, really need a good understanding of what you're gonna read before you pick this up. Moving on to my 2-star reads, I have 2 of them. The first one is Famous Last Words by Gillian. I think it's Gillian, could be Jillian. I think it's Gillian McAllister. This is a adult mystery thriller, and I was really excited about this because I have seen some early reviews from people who received ARCs and they really enjoyed it. Clearly, I did not. So we're following this woman, Cam, and she wakes up to this weird note left by her husband, and she doesn't really think anything of it. She tries to put it in the back of her mind, and then while she's at work, she is contacted by the police, and she is told that her husband has taken 3 people hostage and the police need to know why. And she doesn't know why, clearly. And the story just kind of like takes off from there. It is separated into 4 parts. The first part, when we're dealing with the hostage situation, I was really invested in the story. The pacing was fast. We were getting some background into the characters that I actually enjoyed. There was a bit of action, and I was kind of hooked. Once we got to parts 2 and 3, the pacing slowed down tremendously. We are kind of like in the aftermath of the hostage situation, and so we're primarily following Cam, but we're also following the hostage negotiator. And so during those 2 parts, we're just getting a lot of background that I just did not care about. We're getting a lot of background into Cam's sister, and then we're getting a lot of background into this hostage negotiator's failed marriage that I did not care about, and that it had nothing to do with like the overall plot of the story. So by the end, when we get to part 4, where we're kind of getting like a conclusion to everything, I just did not care because I was literally so bored. And I just thought that like the twist or like the reason for everything was extremely underwhelming. I know a lot of people have been enjoying this, so this is probably just a me thing, but I did not have a good time with this. So my other 2-star read, which is a huge disappointment for me because it was one of my most anticipated reads for the year. It is A Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. This is another adult mystery thriller. We did a full spoilery discussion over on Gabby's channel, Gabby from Gabby Reads, her live show for her book club, Book Trope. Me and Gabby felt the same way, but Erin, that was also on the live show, she actually enjoyed it. So I think this has been like a hit or miss with some people. So in this one, it starts off with Grady, who is an author, and he is on the phone with his wife. And while she's driving, she comes across a body that's like in the middle of the road. He tells her, hey, don't go check out that body. Call the police, let them handle it. Of course, she does not listen. And that's technically the last time he has ever heard from his wife. And so the police can't find her. He went to the scene. He didn't find her. Later on, all they found was like her red coat. We fast forward to a year later, and now Grady is a struggling author. And so his agent suggests that he goes to this like private island, I think it's somewhere out in Scotland, and use a writing cabin that she inherited from a previous client who passed away. And so he decides that he's going to do that because he wants to write his next big book. And while he is over on the island, he actually comes across someone who looks exactly like his missing wife. And then the story takes off from there. I love the setting of this. I love the isolation on the island. I like how there's only a limited number of people on the island. I like how we're kind of getting some background slowly revealed about Grady and his wife Abby's marriage. And at first we get a lot of the story from Grady, but then it turns into a dual POV and we start to get Abby's perspective before she went missing. And so I kind of like the setup for the book. As we progress through the story, the pacing kind of slows down for me. A lot of it starts to kind of feel repetitive because Grady would tell us something that happened, and then Abby would tell us her version of what happened. And so it just kind of felt like we were getting repeating scenes. And then The ending definitely fell apart for me. I did not like a lot of the twists that we got. I feel like for this book, you have to suspend your disbelief a lot in order for this to make sense. But I think if you are okay with where the story goes, then you will probably enjoy it. But if you are someone that likes for your endings to make sense, I'm not sure this is going to work for you. Now, will I continue to pick up more from Alice Sweeney? Absolutely. I do like the general premise of a lot of her stories, and I have enjoyed previous books that I have read from hers before. So yes, I will continue to read from her. I will have that live show linked down below. It was a fun time. And if you guys want to know my in-depth thoughts about this, I would suggest you check out that video. So moving into my 3-star reads, and like I said, we have quite a few to go over. So the first one that I want to talk about is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is a adult romance, and so I was able to listen to this early. It was an early release over on Libro FM through their influencer program. And so before I tell you what this is about, I just kind of want to tell you my background with Ali Hazelwood. I've only read a short story. So this is actually my first novel that I have read from her, and I'm not sure that it was probably the best place to start. So in this one, we are following a diver named Scarlett, and then this swimmer, his name is Lucas. They go to the same college. They're both like pre-med students. And so they end up in this like BDSM relationship. And so we're just watching these two characters as their relationship progresses. Scarlett does have other things going on outside of this relationship. Like she is still recovering from a injury she had, I think like the previous year. So she's really trying to get herself together with like diving again. And then she's also in therapy because she had a tumultuous relationship with her father. So she's trying to get over that. But the bulk of the story is us following Scarlett and Lucas's relationship. So I think I went into this with the wrong expectations, I guess, because when I was listening to other people's reviews, they were talking about how erotic it was and how much sex there was. And so I was like, sold. I wanted to check that out. But this was not what I thought it was going to be. I thought there was going to be a little bit more spice, I guess, to their relationship, a little bit more kink. It felt like a really watered down version of the 50 Shades of Grey, but with swimmers. I think I was just expecting more from their romance. Overall, it's not a bad book. It's just not what I thought that I was going to get when I picked it up. If you are a huge fan of Ali Hazelwood, let me know where I should actually start with her. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are probably gonna say like The Love Hypothesis because that's her most popular book. But I do like her writing, so I would like to pick up something else from her. I just don't really know what else to pick up from her, but this one was just fine. Next up, we have The Duchess Effect by Tracy Livesay. This is the second book in the duology. The first one was American Royalty. I read that a couple of years ago and I thought it was fine. It was good enough for me to want to pick up the second book and just finish it out. In that first book, we're following this rapper. Her name is Duchess, and she gets into some drama over social media with another music artist. And so in order to like fix her image, she is booked to do this show over in like England. And then she ends up staying with like the royal family, and she starts up this relationship with the Prince Jameson. So in that first book, we are just following them as their relationship develops. In the second book, they're still in their relationship, but now they are trying to figure out how to like navigate their relationship, because she is really trying to get her skincare business off the ground, and her team thinks that she should use her relationship with Jameson so that she can get a lot of clientele, but she also wants her business to succeed. So she's kind of trying to figure out what she wants to do with that. And then with Jameson, his passion is teaching. So he is trying to figure out if he wants anything to do with his family, because his family they got a lot of stuff going on. And he is trying to figure out if he actually wants to stay in good with his family or go off and do his own thing and just focus on teaching. So we're just following their relationship. This is fine. I think parts of it was a lot better than the first one, because in the first one, these two characters, especially Jameson, they just felt like horny teenagers. All they wanted to do was like have sex, and all he did was just talk about how big her butt was and all of that, and it kind of got a little annoying. In this one, we don't get that so much. I will say, if you decide to pick this up, read it physically. I would not suggest the audiobook, because the person that does Jameson, he has this English accent, but then it kept throwing me out of the story every time he would do the voice for Duchess, because she's supposed to be this Black American, and it just was not, it wasn't translating well. So overall, if this was something I think you were interested in, you should probably just pick it up physically. But overall, I thought the duology was fine. Definitely not like a new favorite. Don't have any new favorite characters. This was just a good book to like pass the time. So another 3-star read I have here is Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Farida Abike Ayimide. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but this is the same author that wrote Ace of Spades. I really enjoyed that one. So this is a young adult mystery. And in this, we're following high school student Sade, and she has been accepted into like this elite boarding school. And literally like the first night that she is there, her roommate, I think her roommate's name is Elizabeth, but her roommate, she goes missing. And so Sade ends up teaming up with her roommate's best friend, and they are trying to figure out what happened to Elizabeth. Parts of this I really enjoyed. I liked the boarding school setting. I liked learning about Sade and her past, and we learned some things about what led her to go to this boarding school. I liked the friendship that developed between Sade and her roommate's best friend. He was hilarious. He was probably my favorite character in the story. I liked some of the reveals that we got along the way. And I liked the ultimate messaging that we got in this story, which I'm not going to really touch on because I feel like that will spoil it. So a lot of this I did enjoy, but my main problem with this story and why I just could not give it higher than 3 stars is the pacing. So literally, we are following Sade every single day that her roommate is missing. It literally starts with like Monday, and we see the events of what happened on Monday. Then it goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it's happening for a few weeks. And we are literally getting the ins and outs of Sade's time at this boarding school. So much so that there were points in this that I forgot that we were supposed to be worried about somebody that went missing, because we were literally getting the everyday activities of Sade's life. And that really slowed the story down for me. And then at the end, when we were getting a lot of like those final twists, I felt like they just kept coming. And I don't think we needed a lot of the twists that we got. And I felt like it made the story longer than it really needed to be. Every time I thought we were done, something else would happen. And I just don't think we needed all that. This is a chunky book. You can't really tell, but it is almost 400 pages, and I just don't think it needed to be that long. But overall, I did enjoy it, and I will be looking forward to whatever this author puts out next. Next up, I have The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. This is a adult romance. This is the first book in a trilogy, because in each book we are following a different sister, and there are 3 of them. So this is Lily's story. So at the beginning of this, we are following Lily, and she is kind of like at a point in her career where she knows what she wants to do. She wants to be, I think she wants to be like a editor for children's books, but she's working for nonfiction. So she's not really happy with her career, and her family doesn't want her in this career at all. And she's just trying to figure out what she wants to do. She ends up emailing one of her favorite fantasy authors, and he responds. And so in the beginning of the book, like part 1, we are following these emails between Lily and this author that she really enjoys. It starts off with them just talking about his books, and then the emails start to turn personal. And then one day she tells him that she wants to actually FaceTime him. He agrees, but then he ghosts her. And then we move into part 2. So the author that she has been emailing back and forth with, He is Nick. Nick actually moves into the apartment building that Lily is staying in with her sister. And so they end up having this random conversation when they bump into each other in the hallway. And he realizes who Lily is, but she does not know that he is the author that she has been emailing with. And so the story kind of takes off from there, where Nick is getting continuously closer to Lily and Lily is starting to fall for him, but he is trying to decide when and how he should break this news of who he is to her. I thought this was fine. I honestly wish that part 1 could have been a little bit longer, because I really enjoyed their emails back and forth with each other. And outside of that, their actual romance, I wasn't really that invested in. I just didn't really feel anything for the two of them. I kind of felt like this was one of those stories that I've read before. I think we've all either read or seen a movie like this where, you know, people are corresponding and then one person finds out who the other one is, but then they don't never say anything. So I don't think it really did anything too different outside of that. I did like the side characters, like her sisters. One of them was extremely hilarious. So I will continue on in this trilogy so that I can see the other sisters and their relationships. But this one I thought was fine. It was cute. It was easy to fly through, but it didn't really leave like a lasting impression for me. So my last 3-star read I have here is Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan. This is adult fantasy. This is the first book in the Legends of the First Empire. So I have read his Rhaeria Chronicles series, which I have a review for that, which I will have linked down below. And then I read Rhaeria Revelations. So in this series, we are following all new characters, because in both of those series, they are following 2 main characters in each of those series. But in this one, we are following all new characters. This is set like, I think, thousands of years, hundreds of years. It's set years before those other 2 series. So this starts off with one of our main characters that we follow, Wraith. And Wraith is traveling along with his father. They come across these gods. So in this world, humans and gods like coexist. But gods aren't allowed to kill each other. And then humans aren't supposed to be able to kill gods. However, in the beginning of this, Wraith's father is killed by a god, and then Wraith obviously is upset, so then he kills said god. And now he is on the run with that god's servant, Malcolm. And so then we go to another town and we follow this woman named Persephone, and she is the wife of a chieftain. And one day she is approached by this young, like 14-year-old girl named Suri. Suri is a mystic. I think she's also called like a seer. She can read bones. She can talk to trees. And Suri comes and says, all of you guys are going to die. And then the story kind of takes off from there. So I did enjoy this. Ultimately, I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed their banter. Michael J. Sullivan has a way of just adding humor into his stories that I really enjoyed. I liked where the story went. There were some reveals that we got towards the end that I honestly did not see coming. I liked the world that we were in, like it being set so many thousands of years before, or hundreds of years before those other series, and some of the places I was familiar with having read those other series prior to reading this one. However, I just don't think this sucked me in the same way that those other series did. From book 1 in Rhaeria Revelations and Rhaeria Chronicles, I was just invested in the story and I just could not put those books down. This one, however, anytime I put it down, I was not really itching to pick it back up. But when I was able to pick it back up, I did enjoy what I was reading. So with that being said, I do plan on continuing on with the series. I think it's like a 6-book series. I do know a favorite amongst the people is Age of War, and I think that might be book 3, so I'm really anxious to get to that one, but I had a fun time with this. So moving on to my 1 4-star read, we have Kill Show by Daniel Swerin Becker. So this is a adult crime novel. It's kind of like written like true crime. So in this, we're following this mother and father, and their daughter Sarah has gone missing. And so she went missing after arriving at her high school. And so, of course, being her parents, they are frantic and are trying to do everything that they can to search for her. So they are then approached by this production company that wants to do a like real-time documentary over them searching for Sarah. I think it's called like Searching for Sarah or something like that. And so they are trying to help these parents find their daughter. Now, this story is told in interview format. So everything that we're getting is like through interviews. The main people that we're interviewing is the mother and father. Then, of course, we get interviews from Sarah's friends, her brother, neighbors, teachers, other people that she worked with, but mainly her parents. And so during the production of the show, there is a lot of behind the scenes drama, which you guys know I am here for. I had a fun time with this. I really liked the format and how the story was being told through interviews. I think authors that can do that and give us like a full story, I just feel like that's a true talent. I was never bored. This was super fast paced. I could kind of predict where the story was going. Had I not been able to predict that, I think this would have honestly gotten a 5-star for me. But outside of that, I enjoyed like the behind the scenes of them putting on the production of this documentary and us seeing how they actually film things and how they might twist things a little bit in order to put it in the show. I just liked how it came together. I just really had a fun time with this. This was a surprise for me. I saw one review for this and that person gave it a glowing review. And from that, I picked it up and I'm so happy that I did. I had a fun time with this. The last book that I'm going to talk about, and it is my 5-star read. This is The Last Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. This is a adult mystery. I have already talked about this in detail in a video where I was talking about this one and The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I will have that video linked down below. But in that video, I'm mainly talking about how people said that The Housemaid was very similar to this, and I did find quite a few big similarities between the two. However, I still really enjoyed this one. So in this one, we're following this young girl, Amber. When I say young girl, she's like in her early to mid 20s, and she is just looking for someone basically to like take care of her. And so she has her eyes set on this woman, Daphne, and her husband, Jackson, I think. Yes, Jackson. And so Amber ends up running into Daphne and they strike up this friendship, and Amber is trying to get in good with Daphne so that she can get closer to Jackson. And the story like kind of takes off from there. We learn a lot about Amber and her motives, and then we start to learn about Daphne and her motives, and then the story just kind of all comes together. I did enjoy this one just as much as I enjoyed The Housemaid, despite their similarities. I liked where this ended up in the end. I liked how there were so many unlikable characters in this. I did not see some of the things coming. Some of the things I did see coming, but overall, once I started this, I did not want to put it down. I'm being kind of vague on my thoughts just because I talked so much about it in that other video. So if you want to know my full thoughts on that, I suggest you check out that video. But overall, I really enjoyed this. This is the second thing that I've read from this author. The first thing I read was a short story. I actually listened to it that I really enjoyed. This is the first book in a series. I think the other book is called The Next Mrs. Parrish. So I'm really excited to get to that. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. So those are all of the books that I had to talk about. Please let me know if you guys have read any of these. Let me know your thoughts down below. But I will see you guys next time. Bye.